Let me guess, you have finally started playing around on Copilot Studio. You see the hype, you believe the hype, it feels like a game changer. But once you get into the weeds, you realize something is off. You can't ground your knowledge source to anything specific. For example, filtering a SharePoint list or library based on what the user types, or using the output from a Power Automate flow, or grounding responses to specific columns, views, or conditions. And suddenly, your agent feels generic. Well, in this video, I'm going to show you how to properly ground your knowledge source using tools. We'll talk about connectors versus Power Automate flows, the pros and cons of each, and when custom prompting is still required to truly enhance your agent. Before we create any tools, we need to talk about the brain of the agent. Think of your agent like a coworker. You are not the brain. You are the head of operations. The GPT model does the thinking. Anything that includes a description, instruction, a prompt, or dynamically filled with AI. Those are the places where context matters the most. So before anything else, make sure you do two things. First, turn on generative AI orchestration. Second, turn off web search. This is critical. If your web search is on, your agent may ignore your tools, hallucinate answers, or return generic information. We want the agent to rely on your data, not the internet. Let's get started with the agent description. This is a high-level overview of what the agent does. Think of it like your coworker's job title, 2 to 3 sentences and no more. For example, this agent helps user retrieve Power Platform environment information using approved internal data resources. Short, clear, focused. Okay, now let's talk about the instructions. This is where most people underinvest. Instructions define how your agent behaves. This includes when to use tools, which tool to use, how to respond, what to do when data isn't found. The tone and formatting. Think of this as a playbook for your coworker that you have to train. For example, when a user asks for environment information, always call list my environments tool. If no data is returned, respond with no environments were found. Always respond in bullet points, keep answers concise. What I always recommend is giving clear examples of what the agent should or should not use a tool. Now let's move on to the tools. Depending on what you're trying to do, you have two options. Well, technically there's more, but today we're just going to talk about those two options. You can use a connector or a Power Automate flow. If you only need a single action with simple output, a connector may be enough. But if you need multi-step filtering logic or data shaping, I highly recommend using a Power Automate flow. Why do I prefer Power Automate flows? Just personally, I prefer flows because I am more comfortable with the flow designer. I can see and test the flow independently without triggering anything in the task designer in Copilot Studio. I can see the output immediately, and I can shape the response to exactly how I want. This matters because Copilot Studio relies heavily on clean, predictable outputs. Let's take a look at an example. The list my environments action. First, using a connector without any prompting. The agent calls the connector, the output is raw, the AI guesses how to interpret it. The results are inconsistent. The second thing we're going to do is using a connector with a description. This helps, but you still lack full control. But for this example, a connector might just do the trick. So we can do description like only show the environment ID and the name, for example. Then we're going to use a Power Automate flow. You call the same connector inside the flow, you filter the data, rename the fields, and return only what the agent needs. Now the AI has clean, grounded data, and the response becomes accurate and predictable. Now we're going to move on to when prompts are still needed. For example, summarizing results, explaining filters, or translating technical data into business language, handling edge cases. For example, you want a mini agent with its own custom instructions. In this case, the prompt is tasked as a consultant providing expert recommendation based on the given environment type and available to the current user. Your goal is to analyze the inputs and suggest the best option along with a clear explanation. In the prompt, I have created a sample question. The question is, which environment should I use for testing? And then the environment input is the JSON array of all the environments. Test it in the prompt designer, confirm the results, add a custom prompt as a tool to your agent. Add a tool description, your environment and question input values, depending on which one you would like, and save, then update your agent instructions. Now we're going to test it in the test designer. Tools give your agent truth. Custom prompts give your agent judgment. Let's recap. The agent's brain matters just as much as the data. Tools is a way to ground your knowledge. Automate flows give you control. Strong instructions prevent hallucination. And prompt refine how the results are delivered. If this helped you understand why your Copilot felt smart but useless before, you are on the right track. If this video was helpful, like and subscribe for more real-world Copilot Studio patterns. And leave a comment if you want a follow-up on filtering SharePoint lists or grounding Dataverse data.